Hi everybody, and welcome to this podcast about sexual abuse. I am your host, Oksana Dynum, a psychologist and trauma therapist. In this podcast, we will delve into the challenges faced by victims when it comes to saying no and how society plays a role in making it even more complicated. We will also discuss the impact of abuse on the brain, the phenomenon of victim blaming, and how we can understand victims and support them on their journey to healing. Picture a situation where saying no to unwanted sexual advances becomes unexpectedly hard, because shame is often so great that many victims conceal the most painful experiences, and that helps not in their recovery. As a trauma therapist, I see how much it affects their lives. Often victims only dare to say something about this after many conversations. The abuse can lead to shock, fear, sadness, and in some cases post-traumatic stress disorder or depression. Sexual violence is something shocking for the body and mind. That's why it can take a few days for victims to realize what actually happened, and it can take months or even many years for them to say the word rape. They prefer not to talk about it at all, because as long as they keep it to themselves, they can make up all sorts of things in their heads, like saying it didn't happen or it wasn't that bad. Many victims only realize the seriousness and start experiencing problems when other people say it was a rape. When we think of it, we often have a specific image in our minds, like a stranger forcefully attacking someone in a dark alley. The reality is that sexual violence much more often happens by someone you know, a family member, or someone from your circle of friends. This makes it very difficult to recognize that a crime has occurred. Victims may struggle to identify their experiences as crimes and may feel hesitant to come forward due to fear, shame, or disbelief. Furthermore, the typical behavior of perpetrators is to deny their actions or attempt to shift the blame onto the victim by creating a sense of shared responsibility. The World Health Organization defines sexual violence as when someone does something sexual to another person without their permission. This could be touching, making unwanted comments, or forcing someone to have sex. It affects people of all genders, ages, and sexual orientations. It can happen in different places, like at home, work, or online. The avoidance and feelings of guilt are often reinforced by the people and circumstances surrounding the victim. People may question if the victim somehow provoked the incident, perhaps through a comment or a friendly gesture. This phenomenon, known as victim blaming in psychology, places partial or full blame on the victim. Thoughts like "that was naive" or "you should have done things differently" are common. Blaming the victim is somewhat of a logical mechanism, because people want to maintain their own perception of a safe world. When our sense of security and justice is challenged by a horrific event like rape, we attempt to restore that feeling by attributing the cause of the incident to the victim. This allows us to regain a sense of control. The victim did something incredibly foolish, something we would never do, so it won't happen to us. However, For victims, it is extremely harmful, as it induces or intensifies their feelings of guilt and shatters someone's self-image. It makes them feel foolish, and it hinders the process of proper healing and recovery. Victim blaming by others, along with self-avoidance by the victims themselves, significantly worsens the symptoms that can arise from sexual violence. Due to avoidance, victims don't go to the doctor, they don't seek help, and they don't go to the police. Approximately half of rape victims who do not seek help develop post-traumatic stress disorder within 6 months. Unfortunately, unprocessed trauma also makes the victim more vulnerable to subsequent rape incidents. Female victims, in fact, face a significantly higher risk of experiencing another sexual violence incident, up to 35 times more likely compared to the general population. This occurs because they often fail to pick up on stimuli and signals indicating danger, leading to inadequate responses such as failing to ensure their own safety. People often freeze and feel paralyzed when someone touches them inappropriately, grabs their breasts, or lures them into bed without their consent. They may even cooperate with the perpetrator, which can be confusing. The reason why they didn't resist is actually simple. It was for their own survival. However, most victims believe that they are only ones who reacted this wired. If they dare to share their experience with friends or family, they might receive responses like, "I would have kicked him hard in the balls," or "run away immediately." These worsen the shame they already feel. Victims constantly blame themselves for their reactions. Many also feel betrayed by their own bodies. They wanted to scream, but no sound came out. They simply couldn't run away because they became paralyzed, which is a frightening experience. And it doesn't matter for your brain if someone held a gun to your head or if you were touched or raped by an acquaintance. It's all about the perception of danger in the brain. Because your brain can perceive sexual violence as a threat to your life. When someone touches you without consent, that person is already very close to you. The closer the threat, the higher the chance of instinctive reactions like freezing. The emotional part of the brain focuses on survival. The brain thinks, better be raped than dead. The subconscious tricks that your brain employs in order to ensure survival can be quite extreme. There are often questions surrounding the idea of compliance in cases of sexual violence. This is because many people still believe that you can choose how to react when you find yourself in such a situation. In reality, when faced with danger, our reactions are instinctive and automatic, without conscious thought. Within milliseconds, our brain assesses all possible options. The first survival reaction is to flee. It prevents you from being attacked. In addition, there are other responses that fall in between, such as trying to maintain peace or appease the aggressor. These responses are largely similar among individuals, unless they have undergone intensive training to resist and continue fighting against these primitive reflexes in threatening situations. But even soldiers can completely freeze when they are on the battlefield, despite years of training. So, when something bad is happening, your body and brain react automatically to try to keep you safe. When faced with sexual violence, your instincts kick in and you do things to try and make the situation less dangerous. You might make yourself smaller or do what the other person wants, hoping it will make them less aggressive. Afterwards, you may feel shocked and upset thinking, "Oh my God, I did what they wanted even though I didn't want to." It can be confusing and make you feel guilty. Another automatic reaction of the body is sexual arousal. Despite being a highly sensitive and taboo topic in society, it's crucial to understand that the body's physical responses to sexual stimulation is separate from the emotional experience and consent. When a person experiences unwanted sexual contact or assault, their body may respond with physiological reactions such as vaginal lubrication. This physiological response does not indicate any form of consent, enjoyment, or willingness to engage in the sexual act. It's purely a biological reflex to safeguard the body from potential physical harm. Experience of sexual arousal or physiological responses does not diminish or invalidate a survivor's trauma. Freezing and surrendering are not just automatic responses of your body. In many cases, they are also the wisest choice to prevent more severe consequences, particularly when the other person is stronger or possesses a weapon. Research shows that many women who resist rape end up getting injured. So resisting is not always the wisest choice. In recent years, store clerks have been trained by the police on what to do during a robbery. The police advise them to cooperate. No one would ever ask, "Oh, so you wanted to hand over the money? Did you try to resist?" So, why is it different when it comes to sexual violence? It can be difficult for people to understand why victims of abuse sometimes seek reconciliation or maintain a friendly relationship with their abusers. Well, after the abuse has occurred, the abuser may still be present in the victim's life, creating a continued sense of danger. As a result, the victim's instinctual survival responses remain active. They may try to keep a positive connection with the abuser, even engaging in acts of kindness or embracing them. Let's say you have a close friend who on occasion treats you poorly and makes hurtful remarks. However, they also have moments of kindness, where they apologize or offer to help you with something. These positive gestures can create a sense of attachment, making it difficult for you to distance yourself from the negative aspects of the relationship. In a different scenario, imagine a boss who constantly criticizes and belittles their employees. However, every now and then they might acknowledge their employees' hard work and often praise. This intermittent display of appreciation can create confusion and make the employees hesitate to leave the job because they hold on to the hope of more positive interactions. These examples demonstrate how the combination of negative and positive behaviors can create emotional entanglement and make it challenging for individuals to break away from abusive or harmful relationships. Sexual violence can happen to men as well, and it's important to talk about even though it may be uncomfortable. While most perpetrators are still men, recent research shows that women are also capable of sexual abuse, abusing men. Many victims often feel even more ashamed and find it harder to share their experiences due to societal expectations. It's essential to understand that sexual harassment and abuse aren't just about physical strength or overpowering someone. They are about the power dynamics and control that one person exerts over another. Women in positions of authority can be just as intimidating as men and may use subtle manipulation tactics to coerce someone into engaging in sexual activities against their will. For example, imagine a workplace where a male employee faces unwanted advances and pressure from his female boss. Even though she may not physically overpower him, she abuses her power to manipulate and force him into uncomfortable sexual situations. This highlights that sexual harassment and abuse can occur in different situations, regardless of gender. As outsiders, there are several ways we can help victims of sexual violence, our loved ones and our children. First of all, listen and believe. It is crucial to listen to victims and take their stories seriously. Let them know that you are there for them and that you believe them. Try not to react emotionally. Channel your anger and pain towards someone else, not the victim. Especially with children, if you start crying, your son or daughter may try to spare you. Let them decide what they want to share. Tell them that you are there for them if they want to talk about anything. Let them know that you feel really sorry for what they have been through. And reassure them that it's okay if they prefer to talk to someone else. Focus on what the other person needs. It's not easy, and it's even more difficult to remove the blame, especially when it comes to a child. However, it's crucial to say, it's not your fault that things happened that way. You did well. Your instinctual survival responses protected you, and you made it through. Your body actually protected you. There is nothing to be ashamed of. Only these words can already make a significant difference in their healing process. The decision to file a report after experiencing sexual violence is often a challenging one. Approximately 90% of victims globally, according to the Center of Sexual Violence, choose not to report the crime, even when the act committed is undeniably criminal. In reality, victims simply want to move on from this traumatic experience and put it behind them as quickly as possible. They try to avoid anything related to their trauma. However, what they are truly avoiding are the overwhelming emotions. Feelings of guilt, shame, and sadness make it difficult for them to share their experiences, particularly when they fear intense emotional reactions from those around them. These are important reasons why it can take an average of over 5 months before telling someone about what has happened to them. Another aspect is that it can take a very long time for a sexual assault case to go to court. The victim has to retell and relive all the details. it can become an exhausting journey full of disappointments. And if the primary reason for filing a report is to punish the perpetrator, it can be even harmful to the victim's mental health. However, if filing a report is a form of self-recognition, acknowledging that someone has done something absolutely wrong to you and that it is not your fault, then the report can actually provide great strength. Regardless, filing a report is a major decision. The most important thing is to do what feels right for the individual. Processing of trauma is very important, but it is separate from the decision of whether or not to file a report. The most effective approach for processing is prompt treatment, and that is precisely the opposite of what many victims do, which is to avoid. It is crucial, therefore, not to engage in avoidance, even though it can be extremely difficult. It already helps victims to be aware that avoidance is a powerful mechanism, and that they benefit from thinking about or talking about what happened. So we can encourage them to seek professional help, assisting them in finding suitable therapists or organizations specialized in supporting survivors of sexual violence. We can offer to accompany them to appointments if they feel comfortable. But of course, each situation is unique, and it's important to respect the wishes and autonomy of the victim. What matters most is providing them with a safe space to share their stories, empowering them with the tools they need, and showing unwavering compassion through their journey. And I want to thank you for joining me on this podcast. Feel free to share this knowledge with others to raise awareness and combat misconceptions surrounding sexual violence. Support this podcast by liking and subscribing. I wish you all the best and take care.